It's wintertime all over the place. We actually have some snow showers around this evening in the Northeast and down into parts of the mid-Atlantic states. There's an upper trough moving through. And is the snow hole going to be closed this weekend, or filled in, I should say, between eastern Pennsylvania and southern New England? Could be. Bitter cold air is on the way for next week. It'll be the coldest air of the season so far for just about everybody east of the Rockies. And a coastal Gulf snow and ice storm could be looming early next week. We're looming now here on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, which of course you can support by using our Amazon referral link that's pinned to the top of the chat board or on the descriptor to this podcast. Just use the search bar, shop for your stuff, you get it, you pay for it. Amazon throws us back a little bit of coin for sending you there. It doesn't cost you one extra dime. It's a very easy and simple cost-free way of supporting the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. A number of you have done that in the last few months, and we certainly appreciate your support. So here we are. And I mulled through every model. I'm sorry, I have to stop for a minute. Matthew Warman. I've seen really odd posting spellings of my name, but Koyafing, Coiffing, that's about one of the strangest ones. It's C as in Charlie, I-O, F as in Frank, F as in Frank, I. And it's pronounced Chaffee. So anyway,
remember that person at FiOS One who you got aggravated with because she wasn't able to say your name properly. She had to do like 16 takes.
Oh, it was hilarious. That was one of the funnier experiences professionally that I had. It's not that difficult. It's two syllables, Chaffee, Chaffee. And she just could not get it right.
Chafee.
It was every you name every Hayafi, coffee, you name it. It could not do it. Well, anyway, let's. Everybody's like, the chat boards already. They're excited because they're trading forecast shopping experiences, trying to find out what television weathercaster said what. As far as the snow is concerned for this weekend. I would gently point out that it doesn't really matter what they say. What matters is what Joe and I say, because you should not be forecast shopping. Am I right, Joe? You should never forecast shop.
No, you should never do that. And I will say, in terms of shopping, probably by midweek next week, we'll be in the express temperature lane, 10 degrees or less in many places.
That's quite true. Actually, and I mentioned this last night. If we get a snow, if we do wind up with a snow cover, even a few inches, that's probably going to impact the temperatures, especially inland.
Absolutely.
Come Monday night into Tuesday morning, and Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, which is probably going to be the coldest night. But we got to get there first. Also, the folks along the Gulf Coast, from Brownsville and Corpus Christi to Houston to New Orleans to Biloxi, Gulfport, even into the western part of the Florida Panhandle, possibly even the eastern part, northeastern Florida, and then up through the coastal Carolinas. They're going to folks down in those areas who rarely see snow and ice. Are probably going to have to deal with that early next week with this bitter cold air getting all the way down to the Gulf Coast and a low developing in the Gulf. I was looking at this afternoon, and if it's not that the low is intense by the standard of pressures, but when you've got a 1040 pressure in southern Louisiana and a 1015 low in the central Gulf, you've got an animal gradient that is setting up there. So there's going to be a very interesting next week for those folks along the Gulf Coast.
Absolutely. And it's going to be very cold on Monday. I was watching Senator Amy Klobuchar and her Republican counterpart. These two ladies are in charge of getting everything together for the inauguration, the preparations in advance of the inauguration on Monday, the building of the platform and whatever. And the one thing they didn't mention is the weather. And I'm saying, how could you ladies not mention the fact that this upcoming Monday is going to be a bitter cold day in the nation's capital? And for all who are invited to attend, I do hope that they bundle up because, Joe, it'll be probably in the 20s at the very least, but the winds are going to make it feel much, much colder. It'll be a bitter cold day, and it could be coming off of, as you just pointed out, a snowfall late on Sunday and Sunday night in the Washington, Baltimore area. It won't quite be like it was in 1961 with John Kennedy's inauguration, where they had a huge amount of snow that hit the Northeast corridor. It won't be anything like that, I don't think, at this moment in time, but still a very wintry weather picture coming up. And I would say that tomorrow, I would take full advantage of tomorrow. Tomorrow probably is going to be in the tri-state area and for much of the Northeast corridor. Tomorrow is probably going to be the nicest weather day that we're going to see around here in quite a number of days to come. Bright and sunny, winds not overly brisk or bitter, and temperatures are going to be decidedly milder than recent days, probably reaching up near upper 30s to near 40 in the lower Hudson Valley and maybe above 40 for places like New York City, Philadelphia, and low 40s, mid 40s in Washington and Baltimore. Again, take advantage of it because this is not going to be a protracted spell of nice weather. After tomorrow, it's all going downhill. It's really going to be in the throes of wintertime here when we get to early next week.
I don't know what models you're looking at, Adam Lowe. The European did not show 2 feet of snow anywhere, so I don't know where you're coming from with
Oh,
that.
what is this?
You know,
2 feet of snow?
yeah, and that didn't, it doesn't exist. Where are you coming from with this? And of course, you took the opportunity to mention the fact that the Canadians got some rain near the coast because it has an overdeveloped load sitting right over New York City, which is highly unlikely to occur. But
I see what you
that's
have to
another
take into
story for another
account.
day.
What you have to take into account for this potential later Sunday and into Sunday night, what you have to take into account is the following. Up until now, most of the models have been keeping most of the storm offshore. However, as we have been saying, or at least I've been saying, once you get within about 3.5 days of the event and you start getting more data inputted into the computer models, the models start picking up on that and start to better refine both the path and also the strength of the storm. Well, we're now inside of that 3.5 day period, and so now there is a decided difference between what we've been seeing the last few days and what we saw come out today. So it'll be interesting to see what will be the case tonight on the zero Z primary runs, whether or not they continue on this projection of placing the storm closer to the coast and bringing a plowable amount of snow into the region, or whether or not they just say, what we had at 12Z was a burp.
Yeah, no,
Data,
it's more than just the 12Z. The other thing is the precip. I'm more interested not so much in where the low is going to be. I'm more interested in precip amounts that have been going up, and a lot of the models are, a lot of them are showing 4/10, 5/10, 6/10, even 7/10 of melted liquid. And there's a funny dynamic going on with this system too, because you've got this Arctic air. Um, there's this Arctic air that's going to be coming in, and this is going to be one of these deals. I think it's possible, the Jersey Shore, parts of Long Island, might even briefly could start off as a little bit of light rain. But once the snow gets underway, you're going to see these temperatures start to fall. And you may start snowing and it could be 33 or 34, and with a very short period of time, you're going to be 29 or 30. And then within a short period of time after that, when I say a short period of time, I mean a couple of hours. Um, I think by the time we get to midnight, you're going to see a lot of places already down to the low and mid 20s. So you're going to start off with 10-to-1 ratios. You're probably going to finish off with 15-to-1 ratios. It's going to be a tough once we get a good feel for how much precip is going to fall, it's going to be kind of tough to put numbers on this because of the fact that you've got all this cold air. And the other thing is, once it's done, it ain't going anywhere. If we put down even just say a 2 to 4 inch snow cover, it's going to be there, right through this bitter cold blast, and that's going to impact temperatures Monday night into Tuesday morning and Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. I think you could wind up seeing below zero readings in inland areas. That snow cover could knock the lows down that are being forecast now, which are single digits to around 10 in most places, could knock them down, by 3 or 4 or 5 degrees or even more. So that's going to be another factor that's going to be in play. Um, uh, so we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. All right, let's get moving here. Welcome to everybody on the chat board tonight, and for those of you watching in the background, got a nice size audience already with 73 likes. Welcome to tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. We're here Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m. We're going to add a show. Normally we're off Fridays and Saturdays. We're going to add a show, and we'll probably tell you it's at the end of this, at the end of this when we're going to add it. It's either Friday or Saturday.
Well, I think
Um,
right now we were discussing this off air and saying sometimes Saturday is kind of a strange night because there's some people who may have plans to go out on a Saturday night. Others, uncertain. It might be best just simply to do something tomorrow night.
so we'll be here all right. So there you go. We're adding it now. Tomorrow night. We will be here tomorrow night at 7:35 p.m. Eastern time. And then of course we'll be here Sunday night at 7:35 p.m. Eastern time.
And Ruben Fairchild on the chat board now trying to start trouble here, saying, Rayo, you totally downplayed this the other night with snow showers, totally ignored the snow chance. No, I did not. If you want to have Joe replay the videotape from, let's say,
Oh,
2 or 3 nights ago, what I said was that unless you're within 3.5 days of the event, anything you see in terms of a possible snow potential, take with a grain of salt. I am not going to quote numbers. I'm not going to say definitively, hey, we're going to get a big snowstorm 5 or 6 days down the road. I'm not going to do that. Now, tonight, you heard me say that now that we're within the 3.5 day window and we have more data getting into the guidance computer models, the possibilities are better for a snow event because, again, we're closer to the event. You don't simply say arbitrarily, hey, we're going to get snow, 4, 5, 6 days out, and just simply leave it like that and leave it up to the whim of the person hearing you that, hey, Rayo said there's a snow probability. Like I was saying last night with one of the local TV weather forecasters, if you recall last night, this particular person, who I did not mention the name, said, hey, we may have a potential big snowstorm a week from tomorrow, next Thursday. And I'm saying to myself, why are you doing that? You're going to cause a lot of people to start talking at the water cooler this morning about, hey, I saw so and so say there's a potential big winter storm coming later next week. Maybe, but then again, maybe not. You just simply don't do that anymore. You wait until a certain amount of days before the event. So Reuben Fairchild, I didn't totally downplay it. I just simply said, well, maybe, maybe not. I'm not going to jump whole hog into this. I want to wait a little while, and I didn't totally ignore any of you people. I didn't totally ignore you, Reuben. I always listen to you. You know far more than I do. I only have 40. I only have 41 years in this business before I retired. I know you have much more knowledge of these things than I do. Okay? Thank
I
you.
just,
Back to
I
you,
just,
Joe.
I just love a little bit of sarcasm. That
Yes.
that plays well here in the South. All right, well, let's start off. We're going to start off with our friends at WPC, the Weather Prediction Center, who we all know they just love, love, love to lurk in the background here on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. And I really wish you would fix your.
Up to 103
Oh, that
already.
that's 103 likes. Thank you. I really wish you would fix your short range map to put back on the probability of 2 and the probability of 4. It's still not there.
And you remember, Joe, last night, our friends at the Weather Prediction Center using these maps had barely the tri-state area in
They
what
had
10%.
nothing.
You know, and now tonight they're looking at the models tonight, and I guess feeling more confident that we're in about 3 days of the event. Now they place the New York metropolitan area and Long Island in the 30 to 50% category. So
And,
okay,
and actually, it runs from southeast New England all the way down to central Virginia. So the entire I-95 corridor, that mythical snow, that the mythical the I-95 corridor snowstorm, which is just grandiose in people's imaginations because they just somehow are obsessed by it. But there you go. That's pretty much the I-95 corridor that we have a 30 to 50% chance for at least. Now they have this thing. It's a quarter of an inch of liquid equivalent of snow and sleet. Okay, I'm to make it simple. It's the probability for at least 3 inches. Okay, so you can see where it is. The green areas, the lighter green areas, is a 10 to 30% chance, and that actually goes up. I don't know if Timothy Veltman is on tonight, but it actually goes up to Albany because if you think we're in a snow hole here, you should talk to him because he's just absolutely desperate. That whole zone there in the upper Hudson Valley, Joe, has not seen much in the way of snow. Now, I'm going to jump, since I got the maps up, let's jump to Monday into Tuesday, and we have a 10 to 30% chance across much of, well, back almost to San Antonio. San Antonio to Dallas in that triangle down to Houston. And there we're seeing a 10 to 30% chance for at least three, and that extends into Louisiana. And I think they may have
Shreveport,
to wind up expanding that south more toward the Gulf Coast. And then
right?
for Wednesday, we've got a large area of 10 to 30%. And you got to understand, for them to put 10 to 30% across the Gulf Coast is almost the equivalent of putting like 70% someplace else. It just, it's got to be, it's got to be obvious that it could snow there to be able to do something like this. So we've got 10 to 30% from southeast Texas across all of Louisiana, including New Orleans, central and southern Alabama, central and southern Mississippi, central southern Alabama, almost all of Georgia except the Northwest, the Florida Panhandle, almost the Jacksonville's right on the tip of that 10 to 30. And then you've got 30 to 50 in southeast Georgia, across southern parts of South Carolina, including, just north of Charleston. Myrtle Beach is in that dark green area. In North Carolina, you've got Wilmington, Cape Hatteras. I mean, it's just, this is, you got bitter cold air like this. And they actually have a 10 to 30% chance almost up to Cape May in southern New Jersey. I don't know that we're going to see a system that's going to be able to reach that far north. I think this is going to be more suppressed by all the cold air that we're going to have and the big cold high to the north. But it's definitely something to keep, that we're going to be watching. And if this continues, I think we're probably going to see a slew of winter storm warnings and winter weather advisories from coastal Texas across all of the Gulf Coast, from one side to the other, come Sunday. That's probably when we'll start to see them putting it up. So again, something to watch in the long range. And by Wednesday into Thursday, they still have some leftover 10 to 30s there in eastern North Carolina. Meanwhile, tonight we have winter storm warnings still up for the West Virginia mountains and into southwestern Pennsylvania. It's been snowing on and off there for days. Winter weather advisories in western PA, southwestern New York, southeast Ohio, and also in parts of West Virginia. We've seen snow shower activity that's on the radar, but we'll get to that in a moment. That's over Washington, northeastern Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, parts of southern New Jersey, and then also parts of eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England. It's very patchy and mostly light. A few places it's a little, a little steadier, but we do have that there. We've got winter weather advisories up for Denver, Joe, in Colorado. I was looking at their forecast, 4 to 7 inches. Maggie P, if she's on the chat board, I know she'll be happy about that. And then a few more advisories in central Wyoming, western Montana, northern Idaho, eastern North Dakota, and northwestern Minnesota. Some wind issues in West Texas, some wind issues in the Dakotas, and that's about it. And here's what it looks like tonight on the satellite loop. We've got this upper trough that's moving through. It's actually it's sort of like an upper trough slash warm front because the cold air that's overhead now is going to start to pull out tomorrow. And in the ahead of all of this, some warmer air is coming up and it's going over the top, and you're seeing the snow showers there. You also, by the way, if you notice, you got clouds streaming in across the Baja Peninsula into Mexico as a subtropical jet is trying to set up there and eventually pushing into the Gulf of Mexico over the weekend and into early next week. And then, of course, we wait for a stronger trough and cold front that's going to be dropping out of Canada. That's not exactly visible yet. The West Coast is quiet. The Santa Ana stuff is winds have really dropped off, and that's good news. And it's going to continue to diminish as the upper low that's off the coast of the Baja Peninsula, that's been part of the problem, begins to finally shift eastward into Mexico. And here's the radar, Joe. So I think when you look at the radars like this in the wintertime, where you see the blue areas, it's usually snow that's not reaching the ground. But you can see there's some areas of green in southwest Connecticut, a little patch there along the south shore of Long Island. And in the southern half of New Jersey, down into Delaware, Maryland, and Northeast Virginia, that's where we see probably some steadier snow falling. Uh, Enough to whiten the ground, maybe leave a couple of tenths, a quarter of an inch, half an inch tops. And then you see the bands that are in southwest PA extending down into West Virginia and in southwestern New York State. I always say, sometimes in bigger storms, when the radar looks like this, if it's snowing in the light blue, you're in trouble. And sometimes it will be, but not in this particular case.
Well, I noticed that because of the fact that it was so cold here the last 2 or 3 days, and the snow didn't exactly fall at an intense rate where I was, where I live. It was very, very light, and still, in spite of that, even the blacktop driveway ended up getting a nice coating of snow. I would say maybe what about a fifth of an inch, something like that. But it stuck almost immediately because it's been so very cold. Now, interestingly, what we're talking about for later on Sunday, Sunday afternoon, Sunday night, keep in mind that that is going to be coming off of a spell Saturday into Sunday where the temperatures are going to be above freezing. They're going to be, in fact, close to 40 on Saturday and probably somewhere in the mid to upper 30s on Sunday. So initially, when that snow arrives Sunday in the afternoon, during the daytime, I might add, unlike today where every flake stuck, it may take some time to build up enough snow for an accumulation to start taking place. I'm not saying that that's going to cut down significantly into any kind of an accumulation, but it'll be a different character type of snow on Sunday as opposed to what we saw with little or nothing to work with during this afternoon and evening.
The radar's quiet everywhere else. A couple of showers in some southernmost Florida and some snow in northernmost Minnesota, and that's it. I mean, really, really quiet. We don't have severe weather issues. Excuse me, the WPC folks, they've got a quarter to a half an inch. I don't think what falls Saturday in terms of rain showers is going to amount to anything more than a couple of hundredths. So I think the vast majority of that quarter to a half is going to be on Sunday. And you see it there from coastal Maine right down into Virginia. They've got a half an inch to central and eastern Long Island, southeastern Connecticut, and southeastern New England. And the 3/4 of an inch ain't that far away offshore. Across the deep south and the Gulf states, we're looking at anywhere from a half inch on the northern flank, and some of that's going to be tomorrow, by the way. But more of it is probably likely. I would say maybe 70% of this is likely for Tuesday into Tuesday. of next week and maybe into Wednesday in some cases, where you've got 3/4 of an inch to an inch or even an inch and a quarter being indicated. And in northern Florida, we're looking at inch and a half to 2 inches. So where they're near the frontal boundary, there's probably going to be some heavier rains there. Light precipitation up the Rockies on the order of a tenth to a quarter of an inch, going up from all the way up to Montana and Idaho, and very little in the Northwest, nothing at all in California. The dry conditions, the rain-free conditions that they've had this winter, unlike the past few winters, is it's pretty much locked in, at least in the short and medium range. In the short range, I should say. The medium range, maybe it changes. But um, I'm going to look at the upper air here, Joe, and you've got this big trough. I mean, before we do that, let me just do some super chat acknowledgments. Unless you want to do those. Want to do those?
What? You want me to do what now?
Do the super. We've got some super chat hits.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, we'll do that. Quiet John, thank you. Nice super chat hit from him. Let's see who else. As I'm backing up here, we have David Fuller, who says, "I have a coating now, Joe. Thank you for hitting the tip jar." And going still further back, let's see. I know we had somebody else, or maybe we didn't. I'm going
Uh,
way back now at the very
Bogies
beginning.
bees, Joe. Bogies
Oh, Bogey's
bees.
Bees. Okay. Thank you, Bogey. All
Yes.
right.
Thank
All
you,
right,
Bogies
sweetheart.
bees. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So what we're seeing here, and I'm going to go back to tonight. Of course, you see the upper trough that's coming through tonight here in the east. It's this thing over here. It's right there. And that's coming through, and your flow is sort of comes in along the Pacific Northwest coast and dives down into the southeast. We've also got a little extension there coming down out of Canada. That's going to relax a bit as the trough pulls out. We get a bit of a warm up. The heights come up a little bit, just a little bit of ridging here along the east coast. But then you can see this really big trough just overwhelms much of the U.S. from the Rockies to the East Coast. This is a very, very cold look in the upper atmosphere, but it's also very broad. You notice sometimes when we have storm systems that you'll see these sort of V-shaped troughs, and you look at this and you say, well, we really don't see that. This is more of a broad bowl type of flow, and it's hard to get big storms in an upper flow like this because it's so broad. But there are, and it's a little hard to see. Even I'm having trouble seeing it, but in this flow, there are little short waves that are rolling along. And what's happening is that we're getting one of those short waves. I think I'm going to switch over to this particular map and just focus your attention on these areas of darker brown, these jet streaks that are showing up. And here's one. This is the one for Sunday, and it's bottoming. It comes out the bottom of the trough into Arkansas and Louisiana, and then lifts up to the northeast during Sunday. You can see the dark brown there. There's a little. That's a jet streak, Joe. That's running from Western Virginia across New Jersey to about New York City and into southern New England. And oftentimes, along just north and west of the jet streak is where you wind up seeing a band of heavier accumulating snow. So we're kind of lined up for this. It goes out, and then of course the whole trough brings all that cold air down. Now you're noticing another jet streak in the southern stream. You see it there, that brown streak in Texas and up into Louisiana and Mississippi. So that's going to feed into the system that's going to try to develop in the Gulf of Mexico. Problem is that the trough to the north is there to prevent this from turning up the East Coast. You can see how the streak just moves, pretty much slides from west to east and doesn't lift northward up the East Coast. So I don't think you're going to see anything out of that one. So I'm trying to keep this sort of as two separate systems that we're talking about. So the upper air setup is there. The low level setup is an interesting one because you're going to have this weather front that's approaching on Saturday with a little bit of moisture. We get maybe a few showers, and then the front stalls. And you can see there's a low that forms there in southern Alabama and goes into southern Georgia, and then starts to lift up the eastern seaboard. And this is where you begin to see an area of snow break out in Virginia, West Virginia, southern Pennsylvania, southern New Jersey. And by Sunday evening, you've got a low sitting at about 38.7 and 72.3 on the GFS. It's all snow up into Massachusetts. And of course, the system's going to be strengthening a little bit, which is what you want to see. You want to be in that part where, when the storm is in its strengthening mode, is, where you're going to probably get the maximum amount of precip out of it. And we're going to catch some of that. And you can see it there. And of course, once it goes by, the bitter cold comes down. Looking at all the models, Joe, it's like there's not a whole lot of difference between the placings of where the lows are. There's a couple of models. The Canadian and Icon are a little bit northwest of where the GFS is. The European is a little bit southeast. But I think at the end of the day, when you kind of consolidate it all, to me, I think this is, there we are on Thursday night. So if you said you're going to ask me the question, what am I thinking here? I think a general 2 to 4 inch snowfall is a pretty good bet. I thought that yesterday. I'm thinking that today. And, if we see these higher precip amounts that the models were showing this afternoon, if they continue to show that overnight and tomorrow, I might want to push that up maybe to 3 to maybe 6. But right now, I'm very comfortable with an idea of a general 2 to 4 inch snowfall.
And it's going to be a fast mover. I mean, this is not something that's going to linger for a while. I suspect that the time frame that it will be here will be about 8 to maybe 12 hours. So if you figure, all right, half an inch per hour, we might be talking about something on the order of 4 to maybe 6 inches. Again, if you're talking about a half inch per hour on a duration of 8 to 12 hours, but we'll see. Still a lot of time,
And,
still a lot of times left.
yeah, this is what the radar looks like on the GFS. So this is Sunday morning at 7 a.m. I wish they had 3 hourlies here instead of just the 6 hourly. At 1 p.m., the snow reaches New York City and western Long Island, and just about all of New Jersey is snowing, as well as most of Delaware, Maryland, um, a good chunk of eastern PA and southern PA. And then by 7 p.m., you start to see the dark blue showing up here. That's probably where, if that materializes, there's a patch there over eastern Long Island. There's a little patch there just off the New Jersey coast. So if those darker blues are a little bit more northwest, that's where you could wind up seeing some brief 1 inch, inch an hour type snows. And then, of course, this is at 7 p.m. And by 1 a.m., it's all done. And it's just windy and colder and falling temperatures, probably down to 20 or even less, 20 or teens to near 20 by Monday morning. And then, of course, after that, it's just all about the big high that's going to be building in with the bitter cold air. And now you can also see the radar presentation, at least from the way the GFS sees it, along the Gulf Coast. And this is later Monday night. You start to see the snow building there. And those darker blues, Joe, you got darker blues between, I mean, not to San Antonio, but say between San Antonio and Victoria, Texas. You got darker blues around Houston. And you even have some darker blues moving into New Orleans during the day on Tuesday. This is going to be very interesting to see because having lived in New Orleans many, many years ago, I can tell you this. When it snows down there, those people are rejoicing. They just love it when it snows uh, in um, in New Orleans. And there you have it. And then it just moves along. And this might be underdone because the Europeans got a bit more and the snow area a bit further to the north. The GFS may be too suppressed here with the precipitation. But it is going to be a very interesting setup here for the Gulf Coast for places that, could go 10, 15, 20 years or more without seeing snow or sleet.
And people go running out into the street. Oh my, look, it's snowing! It's snowing! That kind of thing. That's the way it is down there along the Gulf Coast because it is such a rare occurrence. I mean, there's some kids who have grown up all their lives, for example, they're maybe 15 or even 20 years old. I've never seen a single flake or pellet of snow or ice down in that particular part of the country. So this is going to be an event if it does indeed pan out the way some of the models are suggesting for early next week.
Here, by the way, the other thing that's making this happen is when the cold front comes through, you'll notice that there's a low there's a low that develops well east of North Carolina on Saturday. This one's out at 36 and about 70 and runs east northeast. And we've been saying how there's been very little traffic in the Atlantic. It's been a straight line west to east flow. So all these systems, we've seen four systems this since mid-December that have all passed to the south and have gotten suppressed to the south. Well, having this low develop out to the east forces the follow-up low to move more northward because there's one ahead of it. So it can't really kind of follow exactly in its track. So it's got to, move where there's some open space, the path
Right.
of least resistance. So instead of going straight east, it goes more northeast. And this is the European at 12Z, and you can see it kind of does the same thing as the GFS. The low is further southeast. I can tell you that on the 18Z map, on the 18Z run, which is still not available on Tropical Tidbits, the low is more northwest than it was on the 12Z, and it gave more precip. It actually gave about an inch or two on the 12Z, and on the 18Z, it was like 2 to 3 with maybe a couple of pockets of 4 that it was showing. So it's they're all sort of coming into line somewhere off the Maryland, New Jersey coast, south of Long Island, and south of Nantucket. That's kind of where this is going to go. And then you can see it's just big high, and there's the snow on the Gulf Coast that the European has. And by the way, again, I was pointing out earlier, look at this gradient here. Look at the gradient along the Texas Louisiana coast. I mean,
Well,
that's really tight. They're going to have gales there going on.
it's absolutely true. It's look at a strong, strong. That's what. That's like a strong northeast flow
Yeah.
coming across the Gulf of Mexico. So
Yeah, and then it goes down, the gradient kind of lessens a little bit. I don't know if the models are really handling this too well, but you see the snow area there. It's snowing down almost, but not quite to Brownsville, snowing to Corpus Christi, heavier snow around Houston, southwest Louisiana, and it looks like the snow shield gets into southern Alabama, south of I-20, and southern Mississippi, and kind of noses up the 18Z run was actually a little further north, and then you see the snow gets into the coastal Carolinas and coastal Georgia, and even in North Florida, they're showing sleet and freezing rain there. Eh, this is not good for the I this is the I-10 corridor. Okay, people that drive in the I-10 corridor usually drive with their windows up and the air conditioning blasting because it's so warm. And this time of year, um, you know, if they have to drive in snow and ice, that's not gonna play very well. These people have never driven in it. Many of these people have never seen snow before.
and that's why I say it's an event when it occurs because it's so rare, so infrequent that you see that. It might be a 15 to 20 year occurrence. And again, that's why as some you're absolutely right, Joe. Some may never have seen snow in their lives who live down there, young people, and so it'll be it'll be big when it when it does happen, if it does happen.
Somebody was just asking, and I lost it. Where is it? Oh, Nathan Stauffer. Is there a snow threat for Dayton, Southwest Ohio? No. I mean, well, the only no. I mean, other than maybe a stray snow shower, that's about it. I mean, there's nothing. All this stuff is way to the east, and the stuff that's to the south obviously is not going to be. For you, it's just basically it's all about bitter cold. And I guess we should look at some of the 2 meter temperatures here that are being indicated. So this is, let me just run to Monday morning. You know what? It's probably better if we use the colors. Yeah, the colors are better. So you can see the areas in the very light purple. That's purple, right, Joe?
I guess
Whitish
periwinkle.
purple, whatever that is. Those are all below. Yeah, those are all like near zero or slightly below zero. There's some -7s and minus 9s across northern Indiana and Ohio. There's some minus 5 to -10 in upstate New York. You look up into Minnesota, you see -10 to -20, -25, also up into North Dakota. You get into southeastern Canada, you're looking at some -30, 33s, 34s. But you can see where the freezing temperatures here, the freezing line, North Florida to just northwest of Jacksonville, the whole Florida Panhandle, going back to all of Louisiana. 32-degree line gets to about Corpus Christi, and back down to Laredo. This is a really cold, very cold shot of air. And then we go into Tuesday morning, and actually it's a little bit further south in Texas, and you can see the darker purples. That's all -10 or more. Western Pennsylvania, parts of southern New York, much of central and northern Ohio, central and northern Indiana, Michigan, into Illinois, Iowa. You're looking at -20 to -25 across central and northern Wisconsin and on up into Minnesota. And Wednesday morning, uh, so the cold air actually modifies quickly on Tuesday night and Wednesday in the plains. But the bitter cold to the east, they got a -21 here near Pittsburgh here Wednesday morning, Joe. That's in -17. This is the GF. This is the European, and I'm going to tell you, the European kind of overdoes it sometimes, and maybe this is one of those cases. Central PA's got a -17. They have a -5 in Northwest New Jersey. I don't know what that's supposed to be. What place is supposed to be, and a -15 like near Hunter Mountain. So really, really cold, and even single digits down to me. So this is one of the coldest air masses we've seen in quite a while.
It kind of reminds me, although it's not as cold or as frigid, kind of reminds me of an outbreak of very cold air over North America back in 1994, where, places like Cincinnati, for example, were down to around -15, -20. And no, that wasn't a wind chill, that was the actual ambient air temperature. In upstate New York, I think Messina, New York, or Watertown, something like -46. Now, we're not talking about that this go around, but it has been a very long time, as Joe has pointed out, that we have seen this type of cold, the magnitude of this type of cold on such a wide area as this. So I know, Joe, that Chicago, I think Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday of next week, Chicago, the high temperature is not expected to get much higher than 5. So that's cold.
By the way, I would point out, just real quick, I didn't do a lot of looking here at the long range. The European models today actually continue to show a rather cold scheme weather-wise right through the end of the month, and maybe even into the first few days of February. So that's kind of interesting that it's doing that. I think the GFS is having a really hard time with the long range. It doesn't know what to do with some of these weather systems that are coming in the flow, both the northern stream and the southern stream. I think it's having generally a hard time handling all of that. So uh, we've got too much going on in the short range anyway to really be too focused on to spend too much time on what could be going on in the long range. The only thing I want to end with tonight is, before we go to Briller Jeopardy, is the polar vortex, which is kind of interesting because I've been trying to find things to read about it. to see, what folks, think about it. I know I saw some tweets from Judah Cohen, who was openly said that he's been kind of confused with what's been happening. But we've seen since December, the polar vortex has been doing these, where it's stretching out, then it kind of balls up for a short time, then it stretches out again. Every time it stretches out, we get into these cold stretches, and this one has started at the beginning of the month, and now it's about, we're 15 days into it. Well, it looks like it's going to do something like that again, where it's going to, try to ball up, and then it's going to stretch again. And in fact, there have been a few runs of the models where it was splitting the polar vortex in two and dropping one center in eastern Canada and another one up into Siberia. So, you know, you might see some strange things going on in the next month if we keep seeing this vortex strengthening, stretching, um, and it may conflict with some of the other teleconnections that are going on. So I just want to sort of put that out there. I don't know that the long range is as clear cut. The long range is as clear cut as it's made out to be going forward. But again, we got too much going on in the short range, and that's where our heads are going to be at in the coming days.
And the other thing is that what we have right now is a weird type of setup. I mean, a notable aspect of the upcoming polar plunge, if you want to call it that, is its widespread nature. It's going to spare no state east of the Rocky Mountains, and if a 10 below to 30 below zero degree temperature doesn't appeal to you, then you might want to escape to Greenland. There are going to be parts of Greenland, Joe, where the temperatures next week, while we're freezing here across eastern and central North America, Greenland will be in the 40s next week. So
Nice.
maybe that's why a specific person is trying to, get Greenland to become part of the United States.
Well,
That's the
that's
next
not.
place that you want to. That's the next place you'd want to go
It's
to
not
set
for
up
the.
your. To set
It's
up.
not for the 40-degree temperatures because those are rare, including in the summertime. It's for the shipping lanes, but that's for another podcast on maybe another YouTube channel and not
Yes,
ours. Okay.
right. But I find it
Um,
interesting. I find it interesting. It's going to be very mild up in Greenland or parts of Greenland while we're freezing our what's off
cor-
early middle part of next week.
correct. All right, let's do some Briller Jeopardy. Thank you, Scott Briller, for sending us tonight's Briller Jeopardy, and we're going to talk. Tonight is about the five biggest snowstorms in New York City in the month of January, Joe.
Well, of course, the one that stands out, the one that we still remember, and I know you were working at FiOS 1 with this particular storm, the one in January 22 or 23 of 2016, the all-time winner in terms of snow amount, 27 and a half inches.
Right.
That's at the top of the list, I
That
guess,
is
right?
number one, correct. January 22nd through to the 24th of 2016, 27, 27.5 inches is number one.
And then
Um,
there was the one that we all remember from 1996, January 7th and 8th, and
right,
that one,
which flood weather got.
right? And where does that on the list stand?
Number
What's
that's not that is number two.
right?
And now there's three more. You might get one of them. I don't think you're going to get. Actually, there's seven on this list. You might get one of these, maybe two. Okay.
There was one in 2005. I think it coincided with the death of Johnny Carson. That's what it stands out in my
Well,
memory.
that's not one of the ones I thought you would get, but that you did get. January 22nd, 23rd, 2005, 13.8 inches.
Right.
Yes, these are only January storms, folks. I'm scanning through the chat board just to see if anybody has. There's three of them left. Okay. Um, Anthony and Fledweather, January of 1970. Steve LaPointe, yes, January of 1978, January 19th, 20th, 1978, which we talked about last night. 13.6. So there's two left now. Two left.
Okay.
And one of them actually goes into February. It's like the dates on it are January 31st to February 2nd. Okay. And let's see if anybody's got that. Flood weather at January of 2022. Yes, that's the other one. That would be no, not 2022. I take that back. Sorry, not 2022. Because 2022 was no, that was NG.
Now the
Um,
one that you was like a tip off here because when I mentioned 2005, you said, "Well, that's on the list," but I thought you were going to mention another one. I was thinking back in my head, what could he possibly be alluding to? How about the January 21st, 1978 event?
well, that's the January 19th, 20th, 1978.
1920th or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, that was 13.6. So there's two left. I'm just trying to see if anybody on the chat board's gotten this one, and I don't see it. Okay, so I'm gonna. Oh, here we go. January 31st, February 2nd. Yeah, but that was in 2021. 2021. January 31st to February 2nd, 17.4. I barely remember that one. I don't even remember that one, but
I
it's
don't.
here. I don't remember a lot of things. Um, so now, number
Somebody,
three on the list is one from not too far in the past. It was in the same year, Joe, of the Boxing Day storm, the same winter, I should say, of the Boxing Day storm.
2010 and 2011, or
In January, yes, January on my birthday. This was what I remember this storm very well because it happened on my birthday. And I was very happy about this. January 26th, 27th, the 27th is my birthday of 2011, 19 inches. I can remember,
ooh,
Joe, all through the 70s and 80s and 90s. It hardly ever snowed on my birthday. Every once in a while, there'd be a year where you get like, flurries or maybe the ground would get whitened. But it wasn't until that stretch during the 2000s where it snowed on my birthday more than a couple of times. And I'm trying to remember, I don't remember what year it was, but there was one in the early 2000s where, we got like 8 inches. And then there was this one, the 26-27 in 2011, 19 inches. And I'm just going to give everybody the one that no one's going to get. January 22nd, 24 in 1935, 18.1.
wow.
So there you go. Those were the seven biggest snowstorms in New York City. And this
And
was a
Mike Water,
time, this was when I don't know who was governor of New York in some of those storms, but I guess they didn't have snowstorms. We didn't have snowstorms like this when we were growing up.
I tell you, he was among those. He was kind of like Governor Murphy. He would close down huge stretches of the interstate highway system during snowstorms of that magnitude.
Is is he running for mayor of New York City?
I don't know what's going on with him.
I saw something the other day that maybe it was a poll that he's like running way ahead of everybody because he
he's,
wants to
he's
be mayor
running
of New
he's
York
running
City.
way ahead of Adams, and so but he hasn't announced what he's planning to do. So I don't know.
Well, anyway,
I don't live in New York City anymore, so what do I care?
no, no, I no.
I do want to address Mike Waterhouse Bonsai, who on more than one occasion on the chat board with our little trivia contest. He kept saying January 1969. You're close, but it wasn't January. February of 1969, we had the infamous Lindsay snowstorm, February 9th, 1969. I don't think we had anything major snow wise in January of 1969. And Bill Kay, what about 1993, the storm of the century? That was neither January or February, that was March, March 12th and 13th, 1993. But so those two were not January storms.
Abedin Durakovic, thank you for hitting super chat. I saw you hitting it earlier, but I was talking too much at the time and I forgot to acknowledge you. So thank you so much for hitting the tip jar. So, all right, so we're going to go. I don't have really much more to add here. So, and we're not. Oh, you know what? Just for laughs, Le Plumes. We can look at Le Plumes.
What?
We could look at Le Plumes.
Well, Le Plumes
Yes.
Delabriowski. Yes.
Yes, Le Plumes, and I have them here on Pivotal so we could actually see them on a map. So let me bring up the local map of the SREF. And remember, folks, with the SREF model, which is really an ensemble model, it's from Stony Brook University. Where it's useful is not so much the numbers it shows, but which way they're going. Are they going up or are they going down? And also the plumes, the numbers that the SREF produces early on. There's 26 or 27 members. I forget what the number is. And the thing is, when you start coming into range, you may only have 3 or 4 of those members putting up amounts. So you got to kind of wait. It's going to be more useful on Saturday. It'll be a little more useful tomorrow. It'll be more useful for Saturday. So it's just coming into range now, and it's actually showing. I mean, it is showing some 1 inch amounts. I would not have expected it to show anything more than that. This is the last time period here is Monday morning at 7 a.m. So you can see it's got some 1 inch amounts starting to show up on the coast. And if we go back 6 hours ago, it probably didn't show much of anything, and it didn't. So it actually, from what it showed on the earlier run, which ended at 10 p.m. Sunday, um, most of the system, you still had maybe another hour or two of snow to deal with, or a little bit more in some places. So it's kind of, it is showing some snow, and that's really the important takeaway from it. So we'll look at it tomorrow when I think it'll be a little bit more useful. And
Okay.
there, and that's it. Do you have anything else you'd like to add? That's a lovely
I'd like,
that's a lovely flannel shirt you have on tonight.
thank you. Thank you very much. I'm just waiting for us to get to two more likes to get to 200.
Oh, okay.
We're
Um,
only two away on my counter.
yeah, where'd you get that shirt?
Where did I get it? I don't know. I've had it for quite a few years. I
Oh, okay.
You
It's back
really
in
enjoyed it?
style. It just
Oh,
came
thank
back
you.
in style.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
See, your flannel shirt got 4 more likes. You can ring the bell.
All right.
Happy New Year.
Happy
All
New
right,
Year.
folks. We're gonna wrap it up tonight. Hope you enjoyed the show. We'll see you tomorrow night at 7:35. So we're adding a show tomorrow night and not adding one on Saturday because we need a break, and then we'll be back on Sunday. So 7:35 tomorrow night. Thanks to Abedin Durakovic, Quiet John. Thank you for the generous super chat hit. David Fuller, thank you for hitting the tip jar. And Bogey's Bees. I love that. Bogey's Bees. Is that from something?
Well, what is it that there's some when you go to the pharmacy, there's some
I
results beeswax or something. I don't know. Ben's bees,
um Bogey's Bees.
Burt's bees, Burt's bees.
No,
Yeah.
Bogey's Bees. Holiday Yum. It's Christmas holiday jar, 16-ounce glass laser engraved jar. Uh, yeah, I'm just reading here. What are Bogey's Bees? At the farmer's market in Hershey until 6:30. Let me read this.
Tom Contino, no guarantee I'm going to make a snow map tomorrow. She says,
I
well,
will.
he arbitrarily assumes I'm going to make a snow map. Says, make your map a larger geographic area.
Why wouldn't you make a snow map tomorrow?
I don't
It's a
know. Because
it's an
maybe everything
early
will get
call.
pulled.
Make a
Maybe
snow
they'll pull
map. What are you
everything.
waiting for? You can't make it
Maybe they'll.
Sunday. You
Maybe
can't
they'll
do
pull.
you go ahead. I'm
Maybe
sorry.
tonight's runs may pull everything back out to sea. I don't
Well,
know.
I'm sure you're hoping that happens, but if in the event that it doesn't, you should do a snow map, and yes, widen your geography so that our friends down in Philadelphia who watch the show, and our friends in Baltimore and Washington
I'll
D.C. who
leave the
watch the show,
Philadelphia.
and our friends
I'll
in
leave the,
Boston who watch the show.
I'll leave the Philadelphia, Boston, and Baltimore people to you. My Facebook page is basically for all of those in the New York and Lower Hudson Valley area,
Yeah,
and that's where I'm.
for your
That's where I.
zip code. Well,
Yes.
I'm asking you to expand that.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yes, I'm
well.
asking you to
We'll have
expand
to
it
take it.
because our audience wants your never to be humble opinion.
We'll have to take it under consideration then.
No, you did it
Take
last
it.
year for me, so why
I'll
don't you
bring it
do
to
it
the.
now?
I'll bring it to the Senate, and
No,
I'll
no, no,
have
no, no.
The Senate will vote on it. You know.
Renata, if you're watching the show, Renata, if you're watching the show, would you tell him to make the map bigger tomorrow? Thank you. I appreciate it. I had to do it, Joe. I had to do it.
All right.
200 likes, 209. We did good tonight. Okay, everybody, have a great night. So we'll see you tomorrow night at 7:35 p.m. Night, night.
Good night.